Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I am so happy I finally get to share a story. I was actually kinda giddy with excitement when this happened because I read stories here all the time. Just to give a little context, I live in Japan, and I'm Japanese born, but went to university and law school in the States, so fluent in both Japanese and English. A few of my friends from law school were visiting, so I was taking them around and acting as sort of a translator while they were shopping. We're in a pretty big department store-esque shop, and my friends needed help translating some electronics. I had just come from work, so I'm wearing my suit and I'm looking like a typical attorney. After a while of helping my friends, two fat American guys come in with a huge attitude. "Hey, are you just gonna help those girls the entire time? There are other customers that need help with English." Now, at this moment, I must have had the biggest smile on my face, as I always hoped I would encounter a situation like this. But I honestly couldn't imagine how insane this would be. Typically, I love helping foreigners because I know how hard it is being in Japan without knowing Japanese. And I've made a few cool people from helping them in shops and restaurants. But these two were so entitled, and I was with my friends that I was just going to tell them that I don't work here and excuse myself. So I reply, "I'm sorry, I don't work," but one of the guys cuts me off. "Yeah, you better be sorry. Now I need to know if this is tax-free and if it works in America," pointing to a Nintendo Switch game. Damn, did this dude really just say that to me? I couldn't help but laugh a little while telling him I have no idea because but he again cut me off. "Well, go freaking check. I thought Japan was known for good service. I feel like I'm in Walmart." At this point, I'm getting pretty pissed because he's now not only acting like a jerk, he's insulting my culture. Meanwhile, my friends are laughing their butts off as they browse Reddit as well. If you're reading this, hey. So finally I go and look at the game, read the back and tell him they sell this in America. Just buy the game there or ask an employee. What the hell do you think we're doing? Are you R-worded? Is this like Japan's version of Walmart or what? I'll be honest, I let my anger get the best of me here and just told him, "Hey, how about you go get lost, you jerk?" As expected, this infuriates this guy and he pushes me and says, "What the heck did you just say to me?" At this point, I'm about to punch this fat jerk in the face, but a manager comes by. He asks in Japanese, "What is going on?" And I tell him that he started pushing me for no reason. The jerk tells me to translate what he's saying, as if I would, while the manager decides to call the cops. So I tell the jerk the cops are coming because of the situation, and he starts laughing and says, "Yeah, maybe then I can finally get some help." In my head, I'm thinking, sure, you speak no Japanese, like they are going to help you. Cops finally arrive, and after some questioning, they come to find that the two Americans don't have their passport on them. Bad move, buddy. For all those who visit Japan, be sure to have your passport on you at all times, because if you don't have it, cops will escort you back to where it is or detain you if you can't find it. But we're staying in Narita, about 2 hours away from central Tokyo, and we have reservations at the robot restaurant in a couple hours. Wow, justice. Cops ask if I want to file a report, and I tell them no, and they throw the two jerks in the back seat of the car and drive them the 2 hours back to their hotel so they can get their passport. Guess you won't be enjoying that overpriced tourist trip nor refund robot restaurant jerks. Back in 2018, I was with my then new girlfriend in a bar at a British airport, waiting for a flight to the US. We had some time to kill because our flight was one of many delayed by the weather. The bar was busy with lots of people in the same situation. After a long queue to get served, we luckily found a small table away from the crowd and sat down. On my way, I noticed a beer-bellied man and angry-faced wife further back in the queue complaining very loudly. He had a red nose of a heavy drinker, so I will call him Rudolph. I was wearing a dark blue jacket and a pale blue shirt and black chinos. Very casual and nothing like the staff who were wearing black polo shirts with bright yellow piping and logos, gold name tags, and black trousers. After I had been sitting with my girlfriend for a minute, we discovered that one of us was a clumsy twat. That clumsy twat knocked his drink over with his elbow. I did my best to mop it up with the napkins on the table, but they were slightly less absorbent than marble, so I was just stirring beer all around the table. Like the good-hearted and responsible citizen that I am, I suggested to my girlfriend, "I don't think anyone saw. Let's get lost sharpish." Like the good-hearted and responsible citizen that I am, I suggested to my girlfriend that I don't think anyone saw. Let's get lost sharpish. But no, Mrs. Goody Two-Shoes said, go to the bar and ask for a cloth. I quickly asserted my manly dominance over her by going to the bar and asking for a cloth. As I was wiping up my lager, Rudolph approached me. He looked about my age, 30s, and he also sounded about 5 pins ahead of me in a drinks race. He tapped my arm heavily. He asked me, why is it taking so long to get served? I answered, it is busier than usual. It's probably the extra customers because of the flight delays. For some reason, my attempt to explain made him angry. He barked at me. All the more reason that it should be all hands to the bums behind the bar. I must have looked surprised by his anger. I said, I suppose you're right. Well, he said loudly enough to have heads turning. Well, what? I responded. This answer absolutely lit him up. I'm not sure of the exact words because he was trying to talk much faster than his mouth could manage. The point that he was apparently trying to make through the shouting and spitting was that I should be behind the bar serving drinks, instead of just tossing about tidying the tables. And that's when it clicked with me that he thought I was an employee. I said, I don't work behind the bar. I'm just, That sentence would have finished, I'm just a customer like you. But he cut me off. I'm still wiping up my mess with a large cloth in my right hand. He grabbed my right wrist and continued his tirade. I told him very clearly to let me go. My girlfriend saw what was happening and quickly stood up. She put her hand around my left arm and asked me to stay calm. She told Rudolph, he doesn't work here. Rudolph didn't hear or didn't understand because his response to her was, mind your own business. I was a little beefed by that. I saw Mrs. Rudolph trundling over towards us, pushing the crowd aside. She looked like a member of a rugby team's drag act, and I assumed that she was coming over to tag team me. I used both hands to lock his left wrist. I pulled him towards me, and as he instinctively pulled back, I changed from pulling to pushing and helped him to fall backwards into the furniture. He went over with the grace of a newborn elephant. His wife tried to help him up, but that project failed, and she fell on him. While the two of them wriggled on each other, my girlfriend said very clearly, do not hit him. We started to walk out with my girlfriend in front of me. After a few more seconds of floor comedy, Rudolph got up and followed us. I turned to face him and he took a swing for me. A slow, wine-drunken telegraph right hook. I think a sedated stroke patient could have avoided it. I leaned back out of the way and his fist went past me and carried on. His momentum meant he continued with a punch until the rotation took him too far and he fell over his own feet again. As he stood up from the beer bottle he'd landed in, I just laughed at the 2 tones of blue his shirt had become because of the huge wet patches. As you can imagine, this improved his mood enormously. He charged for me. I slid left, and with a little push on his right side he missed me again. This time he stayed on his feet. When he turned, he would have gone for me another time, but he noticed the police that had arrived in the bar. Mrs. Rudolph called the police and pointed at me and claimed I had assaulted her and her husband. I was expecting some support from the crowd. I wasn't expecting a round of applause, but maybe someone saying, no, he didn't hit them. Instead, all I could see were couples gossiping and people trying to improve the position of their phones for filming, and the queue reforming. The police, as you'd expect, separated us, and one listened to Rudolph while a second listened to me. The one who was interviewing me and my girlfriend was interrupted by a third officer. They stepped away. It became clear that cop number 3 had seen the CCTV footage. Cop number 3 went to Rudolph's interviewer and did the same. Cop number 2 explained they had seen the video and they had satisfied themselves that I wasn't to blame. He asked me to go with him to make a statement. After discussing how long it would take, I decided I would rather not risk missing the flight, so I would do it after we returned. And I took the officer's card. At that time, Rudolph and his wife started yelling. My guess would be that the police had given him the bad news about the video evidence. He wouldn't calm down, so they cuffed him and led him away. Cop number 2 told me Rudolph was arrested. He'd be taken to the police station, at the airport, and possibly the main station if he needed to be detained. Either way, his bags would be removed from the flight he was booked on because he wouldn't be allowed to fly today. When I returned to Britain, I phoned the officer as promised. Rudolph had been transferred to the main police station because he couldn't be interviewed until he was sober. After a night in a cell, he'd become very cooperative. He had one conviction for assault 11 years earlier, so the police decided to deal with this offense by giving Rudolph a formal caution. It doesn't carry any punishment, but it will be taken into account if he offends again. Going back to the day of the incident, after all the excitement was over, my girlfriend and I settled into our flight. She said she was very pleased with me for staying calm and not being more violent. She hinted that there might be a special reward. I mentioned that I'd never joined the Mile High Club, and if she felt like rewarding my good behavior, we could try to create some privacy. I will always remember her reply. You can get lost. My high school had a system that every time you were late, you had to go get a stamp. Collect 3 stamps and you have detention. Before the first period started, there was a bell signal. At the first bell, everyone had to start forming rows depending on what your first class was. If you didn't make it by the second bell signal that rang 2 minutes later, you were considered late. Now, there were some teachers who didn't wait for that second bell and just instantly took their class. It happened often that I arrived at school in between the 2 bell signals. Some teachers didn't care, others would send me to go get my stamp. One time I arrived at the school right as the first bell rang. I saw the teacher had already collected my class and was heading to the classroom. I quickly ran up to them and joined the back of the row. The teacher had spotted my maneuver and yelled at me because I was late again and had to go get my stamp. Cue malicious compliance. Rather than going to the secretariat, I got back on my bike and headed to a local bakery shop to buy a big bag of croissants. After acquiring the croissants, I headed back home and waited there for a bit. I came back to school with about 5 minutes left of the first period. I went to the secretariat to get my stamp and had to listen to the usual, "You're lucky you're not 5 minutes later or you would have gotten 2 stamps. Yeah, it's not like I planned it." Then I made my way to my classroom. I knock on the door and enter with a big smile holding up the bag of croissants. The teacher was pretty mad, yelling about how she saw me arrive in the morning and why I wasn't in her class. I calmly replied that she was the one that told me I was late, and since I was already late, I didn't see the point in hurrying to catch as much of her class as possible. I added I was feeling pretty hungry since I skipped breakfast in an attempt at being on time. Now that I was already late, I had decided to get me some croissants in the meantime. I then announced I bought some croissants for everyone, not just for me. The teacher was angry, but fun fact, if you don't care, there isn't all that much they can do. I started handing out the croissants to everyone, and by then the bell for the start of the second period rang, and we all left and went to the next class. And before anyone asks, yes, I did offer her a croissant as well, but she refused it. Afterwards, one of the guys from the secretariat came up to me to talk about the croissant incident. I told him how insane it was that I always got stamps for barely being late. He told me he understood my frustrations, but that they can't allow students leaving the school premises to buy croissants for insurance reasons. But nothing else happened other than our talk. The next time I joined our row in between bell signals, I didn't get sent to go get a stamp anymore. I worked at an English training school years ago that did something similar. Think after-school tuition, very common in Asia. We had to clock in an hour before our first class to get ready. If we were 5 minutes late, we would be fined. And 15 minutes late, we lost a day's pay. Nobody objected to being punished if we were late to class, but this felt unfair as we would be sitting around doing very little until about 15 minutes before class. Most people prepared classes at least the day before to ensure they had the right materials and so on. We asked if we would get paid extra for staying late, as many of us would often end up working after our shift finished. We'd be talking to students' parents, preparing materials, waiting with students for their parents to arrive if they were running late and so on. Often people would finish an hour after their shift finished without complaints, as we cared about work and students. As soon as the clock hit 8 p.m., we'd sign out and leave. Everyone would have their computers off. Conversations with parents would have ended early and students handed over to the manager. This meant tasks were unfinished and we got a bunch of complaints. Later on, I realized that I could sign in while I was getting breakfast in the morning and simply show up 15 minutes before class. The system would say I've been there all day. Several of my colleagues did likewise, as we didn't need long to prepare due to having taught the materials already. Management huffed and puffed but eventually got rid of the sign-in system and instead said as long as we weren't late to class, our time spent in the office wasn't super important. Another time management got involved was to put kids in the wrong classes. Students' parents would demand that their child should be in a top-level class for their grade. We would try to explain that the class would be completely in English and they wouldn't be able to follow. New students would be given a level test and placed accordingly. I've been in language classes where I couldn't follow the language of instruction and it was terrible. Management insisted that the customer was always right and we had to do as they asked. The result? Every high-level class had at least one student who couldn't understand what was happening and lost interest in losing English. Teachers would show the result of the placement test, and if the parents disagreed, we put up no resistance. After a term or so, parents would be outraged at the lack of progress and often a decline in their child's English scores. Teachers would be blamed and we'd simply pull out the recommendation we made when they first came to the school. Management again tried to blame us for not being forceful, but we reminded them we couldn't overrule their judgment. Once again, this policy was scrapped and the teachers could overrule management and the parents. We lost a few sales in the short term, but most parents appreciated that we had the child's best interest at heart. The students would eventually make it to a higher level, but when they were ready to do so.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.